Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. On this week's show, we are going to recap the Finishers Open. The person that wins that gets the shot at who's number one. We're going to preview Fury 13 that is headlined by some fun matches and a women's four-man bracket. We are also going to talk a little about the Fight to Win 281 that Josh and I actually did commentary for down in DC, and talk a little about some other stuff going on. As always on the show, I'm your host, Maine, the co-host,
Corey.
How you doing, Corey?
I'm doing phenomenal, man.
And it is phenomenal. You cannot hear, again, hopefully audio is good this week. We are finally into the new space.
Yes.
It's
nice.
It's nice. I'm very happy to be here. There's still, sitting in the space, there's still so much to do. And, the reality of, awesome, we're now sitting in it, using the space. It's awesome. I've been doing it for 6 months, and I'm still looking at, everything that you can't see behind the camera that is not set up yet, not finished. There's no door right now. So it's definitely still a work in progress. But again, I hope it fixes some of the audio problems that you've been listening to over the last 6 months. But we're back. We're here. I'm super happy to be here. Got off commentary last night. Got back to the house about 1 a.m. So it was good. Commentated Fight to Win 281 with Josh. If you want to watch that, it's all on Flow Grappling. We're not going to cover it too much, but you watched a bunch of the card, and so there's a couple things like the main event of Elijah Dorsey versus Overstreet took place on that card. Elijah has been looking phenomenal recently. We'll talk about that match, but yeah, really that's it in news. Nothing much major is going on for other than the new space and then running commentary. So I think let's get into the show, Corey.
Let's do it.
Where do you? No, I didn't say this on the pre-show. Where do you want to start? What event do you want to start with? Let's do recaps first. All right, let's pop right into Fight to Win. Again, if you want to hear the full Fight to Win, it's on Flow. Josh and I got there last night. And whenever Fight to Win comes into the area, we do a lot of the commentary in this area nowadays, and it's awesome. Big thanks to Seth for giving us the opportunity to do that. Love working with Fight to Win. Getting to DC is a nightmare from where we are. So it was it was almost a 3-hour drive to get down there. So we rolled
3 hours?
I left my house here at 1:30. I dropped Josh off at the hotel with Doubletree where the event was taking place at 4:25 for a 4:30 start.
That's terrible.
We sat in traffic for hours. It was Josh, go. And he was like, I got this. I was like, I will find parking, figure it out. And then I came in during the first match. I was super embarrassed about that, but it didn't anticipate it taking us that long. But Josh held it down for the first match. Then we get about 20 matches into the card, and I'm looking there's a lot of matches on this card. On this card this evening.
I lasted about an hour and a half, man. I'm sorry. Great matches, but it was a Saturday. It was a long time, homie.
I counted the matches out. I was like, there's 54 matches on this card. And Josh and I fist bumped let's keep going.
Yeah.
And
you guys did a great job.
It was a really fun event. I think of all the Fight to Win events that we've commentated, I loved the matchmaking on this one because it was a lot of people that we know locally. And I think it was Seth said it on the mic, which I thought was funny. There's only a couple of matches that kind of mixed belts, but Seth gave Baltimore area props. He's like, man, other regions don't do this as easily. Baltimore was just you guys will fight anyone.
Basically.
And it was just very nice to kind of get props from Seth there. As a guy that goes all across the country putting matches together, there's a bunch of interbelt matches for people that just needed matches and are willing to go up, blue belts fighting purple belts fighting brown belts, black belts fighting brown belts as well.
Referees fighting people.
Referee got up on their Ben. It was it was a really fun event. So main event was Elijah Dorsey versus Overstreet. And we talked a lot about Dorsey on commentary and just he had a really close match recently with Tynan Daupra where he loses on points at Brazilieros, looked very good, played a really heavy countering game. Miranda and I talked about that match in pretty decent detail, I think 2 weeks ago on the show, something like that. And then he had a match at BJJ Stars, I think 13, versus Mika Galvao that was very close. It was a little contentious for it was a
little controversial.
It was a tight decision, yeah. And we broke down that match. Elijah is absolutely on that upper echelon level. Go back and watch the match he had at West Coast Trials versus Nikki Ryan. For me, that's always the match that whenever I think about Elijah Dorsey's career, I think about his kind of run at ADCC and the counter heel hook that PJ Barch nails out to put him way in that one. Yeah. And I think about what punched his ticket into that tournament in the first place, which is that trials run that he made. Because we knew he was good. He was a world level guy, and we knew he was good. But that Trials was his like big coming out party at East Coast Trials 2022 or 2023. Yeah, 2023 because it's the opposite year. And then you look at sort of the way he shuts Nicky Ryan's game down and doesn't really give Nicky Ryan an opportunity to sort of get his game going, get rolling, and just Dorsey's just able to really tactically take that match sort of away from Nicky Ryan in a way that Nicky Ryan had just been blowing through people that entire tournament, like uncontested. I think he subbed everyone up until that match and then runs into Dorsey and can get nothing going because Dorsey just plays spoiler to every entry, everything he wants to start. Dorsey just takes him out. And so we know Dorsey has the ability to do it. We saw him do that a bit with Tynan, where it's like he's sort of forcing Tynan to be the aggressor. Dorsey's playing that really good counter game. Miranda and I bring this all up to talk about some comments that we made a couple of weeks ago in talking about Dorsey's game versus like he is slow to start versus guys like Tynan or Mika, where he's a little passive and like not necessarily passive, but he
lets the game come to him.
Yeah, he lets the game come to him, and you can tell that he really wants to counter those guys, and that's what he does against Tynan. That's what he does against Mika. He's not successful with that, but you can tell with those guys. And Miranda and I made a point where I don't get a chance usually to watch a lot of his earlier matches in those cards. We usually are covering his finals matches or like matches in pro tournaments where he's only against super elite guys. His runs through Brasileiros and like his runs at other majors, we don't really get a chance to see as much of those because that we were limited in time for being able to watch those runs. And Miranda made a comment that was, I'm curious if he is facing guys that are not on the upper echelon elite level like Mika and Tynan and PJ Barch and like those guys, Nicky Ryan, if he is more aggressive. This match, again, taking nothing away from Overstreet here. Like Overstreet, it's awesome to see him here. Dorsey is a big step up for Overstreet in this matchup, and Dorsey took the match to Overstreet pretty much from the beginning after the pull that Overstreet made early in the match.
Quick little overhead sweep.
You just saw Dorsey start to get rolling, and it was very funny because Josh was not part of the conversation on the show. It was Miranda and I. It was Josh and I doing commentary at Fight to Win, not Miranda and I. And I was like, I can't even tie this into commentary for comments we've made or discussions that we've had about Dorsey and his game and his strategy leading into the game because Josh wasn't part of that conversation. He heard it on the show, but isn't part of the conversation. It was just very nice to have a question like that we had on the show a couple weeks ago answered in real time and get a chance to actually call and commentate the match to going, when Dorsey feels like he can put the kind of hammer down in a match.
He does it.
Does it. And then he gets to the back. He transitions from mount to back and just is a whole step ahead this entire match. And he does his signature move. What
they call it, big breakfast lock.
That's what I call it. I talked to Dorsey.
Lightning lock?
The lightning lock. He calls it the Dorsey lock. I talked to him after because we were all getting checks and getting squared away for the business side of what we were doing there. After, and because he was main event, we were all kind of in the same like time period getting that taken care of. I got a chance to talk to him, and I was like, hey, I did commentary, phenomenal match. I congratulated him for the match. Talked about some other things that he had done. He's going to Worlds in 2 weeks, so he'll probably, I'm curious to see where he brackets out in his division. But I was like, I know you have a name for that shoulder lock. And what he does is a lightning lock. If you're not familiar with the lightning lock, what it is you have the back, and then it is essentially an Americana that you do behind their head. So you pull their arm back behind their head, and it's a shoulder lock, and it's a really good shoulder lock. And if you can keep the person square to your body, if you have good hook management and good chest to back control, it's a really, really effective.
Looks painful.
It's terrible. It's like it hurts a lot, but you keep having the ability to kind of move, and so you can eventually just go, yep, that's just going to tear my shoulder. I have to tap now to it because it's just pulling the shoulder back, and I have like one ligament left in this shoulder, so I got nothing. So whenever I see Dorsey do it to someone, I always go, man, that would be terrible to have done. But he calls it the Dorsey lock. I know it as a lightning lock prior to that, but he has really brought that to prominence, and I talked about it on commentary. I think he's probably the best guy in the world at that because of the way that he tends to fight the hands down. It was very nice to see it in real time and to be able to call the action on, like you were watching, he has a very consistent setup that he uses to get there. And again, any guy that does something at a world level that becomes kind of their thing, like you watch Tarico Plata or Brato Plata, like those guys set up, like Tarakop's like set up a Tarico Plata. You're like, oh,
That's how it's
you have a really consistent. It's even like Barry Yoshida. I'm a huge Barry Yoshida fan with his back crucifix. You watch him set that up. He does it from the guards, the back. Like he has a very consistent way that he sets up that move. That's like, oh, you do that like, yeah, and he has variations to it as well. But like, there's a very given his preference, there's a very consistent way that he can set that move up, dude. It is so nice after 6 months to not have to hold the microphone. Wow, aside there. But yeah, it was really cool in real time to see Dorsey set that up. And it's a move that I think as Dorsey hits more and more of them, I think we're going to see more people trying for at a top level because...
It's going to be part of the current meta.
Yeah,
I
also,
think so.
You can spin out of it. Like the top level guys will tend to spin out of it and around it. But I think it's something Dorsey keys into more and like continues to refine in his pro career at black belt. I am very curious if it will be a thing that's like what we talk about like for Roberto Jimenez, that double under back take.
Yes.
Where he kind of got better and better and better and better at it. And now it's like guys don't really let him get there. Like, hey man, I do not want you to be in guard with double underhooks and a loop grip on me because you're going to take my back. Again, the back take for Dorsey, it's a little different. Like you don't want to have someone on your back anyway.
Right.
But I'm curious if people will start fighting their hands lower when Dorsey gets their back because they know this is coming. It's going to kind of shift the meta for the opponents that Dorsey faces in an interesting way that I'm very curious to see kind of where it goes. So you saw the match live. Any kind of other comments you have on that?
No, it was a very dominant match from beginning to end. He was just, you just saw Dorsey, Elijah Dorsey, just hunting. He was hunting him.
Yeah.
Once he got that overhead sweep over the top, after that point in time, it was just, all right, how's he going to get to the back? And and they were.
You could tell that he was kind of hunting the entire time for that back.
Granted, Overstreet, he was game. He was game for a while, but after a while, you could just tell it was just kind of he was slowly.
He was like
sinking.
Slowed Overstreet down a little bit. He got to the back, and you're like, this is probably.
It was like quicksand, man. You could just see it.
Yeah.
It was just kind of it set in, and it was just going down. But he was game.
Yeah.
He was game.
So that was a fun match. Again, the whole card was super fun. The top, I mean, we've done commentary for Fight to Win a couple of times. I've commentated a lot of events over the years. I like the pacing on Fight to Win. Some events will do it's like you're like kind of sitting between matches, like waiting, kind of like, okay, this is one a little slow. 54 matches. I think I've only ever done one event that had more matches. As a commentator, I might not have. That might have been the longest, like as far as matches go. Man, that went through. That 6 hours went through so quick, and to get through 54 matches in 6 hours, it is again a shorter match time. But I also really I wish that other cards would sort of look at the model that Fight to Win has with their pacing.
Yeah,
and
it was pretty. There wasn't much time between matches.
No, it's like Josh and I have a chance to like drink something real quick and like do it and look to the next match and like make a comment or something for hey, we're like for how we adjust our commentary.
Yep.
And then we're not doing the next match. Like I think all grappling events should have this sort of pacing because you left and it wasn't like, wow, that was a slog to get through. We left and I was like, oh snap, we're done now.
Yeah,
it was.
I think pacing was fine. I think the matchups were great. A lot of those matches were exciting. Most of them were. There were
a lot of subs too.
A lot of subs.
A lot of subs.
You
on
see
the
a lot
card.
of straight ankles, man. That's part of the current meta. My thing.
Yeah, man.
Saw a lot of close guard work. You saw a lot of quote unquote fundamental jiu-jitsu coming back into the forefront, man.
Yeah, man.
And I love it. As an older grappler, that's my game.
Yeah, it was a super fun card. One other match I want to talk about on the card because it was just very funny. You have the names pulled up for that real quick armbar.
Oh, that was Wallen versus Smith.
Yeah, it happened probably later in the card, but it was
like 9 seconds.
9 second sub, and Josh and I were commentating. So when you do commentary, we have a list and sheets and some notes for some guys, and you'll go through a pretty standard introduction. If you watched the event, you heard us on commentary. Shout out to everyone that sent us DMs on commentary. Really enjoyed that. You have like a specific, for the first like 15 seconds of the match or 20 seconds of the match, you're kind of going through your standard, this guy information. And then you kind of have to break that off to talk about it. A lot of grappling in the first 10 or 15 seconds. It's a feeling out period.
Right.
Occasionally, matches will start early and you have to adjust your commentary. I was still in the open of the match, and then the match finishes, and I look at Josh because I've been looking down at the paper to make sure I got the names right, and I look at Josh, and Josh looks at me, and if you can see now, Josh does this motion to me,
Yeah.
And we're like, looks like a sub. And I thought usually if a match ends that quickly, that early, it's because an injury happens. Like an immediate.
Josh had mentioned that on the
commentary.
Hey, it might be an injury.
Immediate injury. And then immediately I go to our team chat for Grappling Around, and I go, what the fuck happened? And then I think you or Miranda went really quick flash armbar. And then like probably 5 minutes later, it was on Facebook, and I saw it. I was like, oh, that's what happened. And it was just very funny. On commentary, you tend to miss stuff. It's your job to be there to call the action. It was just a very funny, like behind the curtain moment of just looking down to get a name and then looking up and going, oh shit, it's over. And I have no idea how to like talk through this because I just missed. And looking at Josh, like hopefully, and him going and him giving me the hands of like, I don't know anything, man. And then going to the team. And it was just a very funny kind of moment that occasionally if you do commentary, you call matches and events like that, it really should never happen. No. So I like to call out when it does, and it's like, that's, it was a very, very quick match.
But to be honest, though, it happened so quickly. I mean, no, I didn't expect it to be over that fast.
Yeah, we were like, and it's over. Okay, if you watch, there's a
I had to
highlight.
rewind it a couple times, like what actually happened here, because it happened so
really
fast.
Quick overhook armbar sweep and finish.
Yeah,
and it was just like kind of out the back door armbar.
Smith shoots a double, and Wallen kind of spins, and I guess to get out of that. Smith bellies down.
Yep.
Almost so, and then Wallen kind of steps over and pulls and just drops his hip down.
Yeah.
It happens so fast.
He gets that guillotine grip armbar, and it was just like, oh, that's over. Again, it's neat. You can tell it is something that he has well drilled.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just, it's again cool to see it on the Fight to Win stage there. But that's really all I got for Fight to Win. You watched a bunch of the matches. I mean, if you want to hear Josh and I break all of them down, we did it on commentary. It was a lot of fun. If a Fight to Win comes to your area, recommend go down to it. It's awesome. It's awesome to get the whole community together. You see like all the gym owners, all the active competitors, their support, their team, their families. Like they're really cool events. We've covered Fight to Win for 8+ years now, and every time the one comes to town, so I was like, oh, these are always like real fun. It's a nice little party that comes to town that sort of gets the whole community together.
See people you haven't seen in years. Hey, what's going on?
Yeah, I've always for these big events would be cool to just like, after the event, like all the gym owners get together and just take a big picture. And you see like a microcosm for when these big tournaments come to town of like, hey, here's the community here that showed up to do these things and support. So that's that. That's Fight to Win 281 that was in DC. Let's move on to Finishers Open. So we're talking about Finishers Open. It was do you have actually where it was broadcast? It was on a site that I'm not really familiar with. You can find it through their event page. You can find the links there for where it is. Corey signed into it, showed us the matches. You watched a bunch of Zach Guyani's and Sean Yadimarco's run up into the finals here. This was
man. Both beasts, though they're both beasts. Wizards, very aggressive. Just tacticians.
I've had a chance to actually call some of Zach's matches over the last couple of years. Fun grappler, like entertaining style. This is important because the winner of this, Peel, spoiler here, Sean Yadimarco takes this in pretty decisive fashion in the finals. He then punches his ticket into Who's Number One. So this was a Who's Number One qualifier. And again, you can hear over all the years me talking about how much I love qualifiers because it gives a guy in some sort of an open tournament an avenue to get onto a bigger show. It's why I love ADCC trials so much. It's why I love that CJI for Lachlan's team is doing trials to get into that. Like we talk about Polaris doing trials or Kasai doing trials. Like it gives people that don't necessarily have a huge name an opportunity to go and face guys that are really good and get put onto a showcase event. And usually I find that people that can win those things have a big future in the sport of grappling and go on to do really interesting and entertaining things, at least for the next couple of years. They may never get to the world elite level. A lot of them do. But for instance, we're going to talk about Junny Ocasio on Fury. Ocasio is one of the guys that wins a Kasai qualifier at purple belt, puts him onto Kasai. He's just a good purple belt, really good purple belt. But that puts him onto the Kasai stage, and then from there he was able to show just how good he was. He got more bookings, billings, and then he has turned into a champion at Fight to Win and a bunch of other organizations leading into that from a trial. So Finishers Open 20 was a trials to get on Who's Number One. Sean Yadimarco versus Zach Guyani was the finals here for this. Sean Yadimarco was all over Zach Guyani early. After an early pull.
Early pull, and I think Galliani's kind of he sat and kind of conceded bottom.
Yeah,
He one knee and Yadimarco kind of pushed forward and he kind of leaned back into guard.
Which is
so
fine.
He
Again,
conceded that.
Especially in Fury. I keep saying Fury because we're previewing Fury next. Especially in finishers where it's a 3-round format. It's sort of like the CGI format.
Yes.
With a little bit. I think for this one it had overtime.
Yeah.
Yeah, for like ABI style overtime.
Yes.
You lose nothing by pulling first and like waiting for your opponent to come in if you want to play the bottom position.
Yeah.
Like there's no rule against it. There's no need. You can do that.
I think with this here, I wonder what Galliani's game plan was because he was the second semifinal against was it Jack Reynolds, and that was like a 6-7 minute war. It was so I wonder how much energy that Zach expended during that semifinal route. And I think Yadimarco, he was a first semifinal match, so he was probably a little fresher coming in there.
Yeah, he had a little more time, a little more
Plus
rest
his
time.
matches, I think, on average were a little shorter. Zach's were a little longer, even though Zach, you could tell he dominated on his way through. His matches might be a little longer.
What's going to make you wonder?
I just wanted that factored into the finals. You know what I mean?
Always makes me wonder, and we talk about it like certain guys when we've talked to guys that are on that world level. Certain guys it matters, other guys it doesn't, and it's always very fun to me because it's there. I've never found a rhyme or a reason for why certain guys like not necessarily care, but like their conditioning doesn't seem to be bought. Like Roberto Jimenez. He can have like 4 wars back to back to back, and it doesn't really like seem to change
crazy gas tank.
How he is at all. Like Tackett, you can have it's like guys with those crazy ass tanks. It doesn't really seem to matter, but other guys, those longer, even if it's a little bit longer, like that really factors into their success late in a bracket. Or they talk about, man, I was really tired after that second match, had to go and gut through my third match to go into the finals, and it's like I've never really found. I'm guessing it's a conditioning thing for guys, but certain guys don't care. Other guys care a lot. And for these big tournaments, when you have a big bracket, if you can blow through your guys kind of like Yadimarco was doing on the more quick side, you are going into that finals match, I think with more tools available to you. It's like I can kind of take this match where I need to take it because I have the gas tank to be able to do that. And versus a guy that had a little bit of a longer match, you always kind of wonder. It's that weird X factor. It's sort of why back in the day when you had like MMA fights that were tournament fights, if a guy had a really tough first fight, you're like, that absolutely impacts how effective he can be in his second or third fight of the night. Sure. The same thing happens in jiu-jitsu tournaments, but again, to a lesser extent from the damage side, but also just from the cardio side. Like if you have a really, really, really tough match, a lot of times your second match or your following match, you're gonna have a harder time. Like I had a really good athlete at Naga recently, and he did like 4 to 5 divisions, and I watched his match in his like final division. It's like a guy he probably should have beat had a really hard time. And it's like, oh yeah, you just had like. You had an entire absolute bracket. You've had your entire no-gi bracket. You've had your entire, like, your division absolute bracket. Then you had your gi bracket. And this is again. This is now your absolute in your gi bracket. And, like, the guy's a little bigger than you, but he's only had 3 matches, and you've had, like, 9. And so you're more tired. And so you get into it's just always an interesting little X factor in these tournaments. But on to the finish here. At one point, there was I want to talk about the finishing sequence because it made me not laugh, but it was indicative of where Yadimarco was. Guyani at one point stands up to try to sort of wrestle up Sean Yadimarco, which is something we know Guyani to do. He really likes to favor that single leg, comes up on it, will drive, will get you over, and we'll work either into the legs or into top position. He does that to Yadimarco. Yadimarco stands up, tacks away, and then Yadimarco steps back in with an overhook, sort of catches Guyani looking to come in, maybe looking to come out, maybe looking to pull, and Yadimarco just launches Guyani over the top with a big Harigoshi and like lands Guyani not quite flat, but pretty close to flat. It was
his arm was out there a little bit to help plant, but I don't think they really. It was close. It was close to flat.
It was a big throw, and then Yadimarco did something I like to see from athletes when they do a big throw like this is he didn't sit and take a picture and like wait.
He progressed.
Yes. And a lot of times at the lower levels, you see someone hit a big throw and they get like, yeah, I did a big thing. Like at the higher levels, the guys that are really good at these big throws. There's a really famous Polaris clip of a guy hitting an Uchimata. Sorry, not an Uchimata. a drop Sayonage, and then immediately into an armbar. And it's like, yeah, that's what you need because you have, and you saw it a little bit at Fight to Win this weekend as well.
Yeah.
You'd see a big throw right into a submission, and it's like, yeah, that's how judo does it. That's really how you need to be doing this so that you have initiative, you have them kind of like reeling from that big throw, trying to recompose themselves, and then you're immediately on to the neck. And Yadimarco, from this throw, immediately looks to progress his position, starts to throw another Darce. He's been throwing Darces and Anacondas and guillotines this entire match. Yeah. Sort of forcing Downey to keep defending, keep putting hands on hands, and you just see Yadimarco now be a full step ahead. He laces an Anaconda.
Yeah.
And it laces the Anaconda through, gets the hand on the back, and it was like, Downey's tough. I don't know if he's going to be able to get out of this from Yadimarco, and then Yadimarco finishes, punches his ticket, goes to who's number one. I'm curious who they're going to give him on who's number one. We've seen a couple of these qualifiers. Again, Finishers has done a couple of these qualifiers, which, again, I love. I think that every major card needs to have some sort of qualifier.
It's going to be 185, so it's going to be interesting who they give him.
85, 95.
85.
Yeah, it's a middleweight. So, again, there's a lot of guys. Who's number one has a bunch of good, like, fun guys that are all going to be big steps for Yadimarco. But again, he's a guy we've been covering for years now on the show. He's a guy we're really familiar with in the Finishers series. Mm-hmm. So again, I'm excited to see him. Again, I love qualifiers because it just gives an opportunity for a guy to get onto the level and get a big showcase match. And it's great. Any kind of closing thoughts on Finishers? You had some other notes that you went through. You want to go through any of those or you want to move on?
No, that was basically, I just wanted to say that Zach is a wizard. I mean, just to see him be so unorthodox in some of his moves, and had to watch things a couple of times to get an idea of what he was doing. But even the commentator was just saying, hey, he has his own little way of doing things, and he's a tactician, he's a wizard. But he was a very impressive grappler, very impressive finals match, and it was fun to watch.
Awesome. So let's move on. That is the recap of the Open for Finishers done. Let's move on to this next week's event. We have a fight card that has, which is Fury 13. Fury's great. Fury's a kind of a subsidiary of CFFC. It's broadcast on Fight Pass. I love the production on Fury. Commentary is always really good. Production's always really good. Again, it's CFFC. CFFC has run 142 events. They know how to run events. Fury looks like an MMA show just under the jiu-jitsu lights, which is what I like. MMA kind of knows how to put on a show, and they pull it over to grappling, and you get a high level of production here. This one is main evented by Pat Sabatini and Joe Solecki. Both UFC fighters, both guys that have come out of the Fury hopper to get into the UFC. It's going to be a wrestler back and forth. Both of these guys are very much kind of in the MMA jiu-jitsu scene, so I don't have a whole lot of commentary to make on either one of them. Solecki is, again, both of them are very good grapplers. I don't have a whole lot of insight. There are actual, just straight up jiu-jitsu guys on the card that I'd more rather do larger previews for. Corey, do you have any kind of thoughts on Sabatini versus Solecki?
I think it's going to be just a lot of aggression. Knowing they have MMA backgrounds and they mix up with MMA fighting and grappling, I can't see either one of these guys being passive. I don't know much about either one, but you get into the wrestling, the MMA, that's aggressive. That's aggression right there. That's just
and no cages. So it's just an open mat, which is always fun for the fighters.
Yeah, it's open mat. So it should be fun to watch.
It'll be good. So next one we have the co-main event for the bantamweight title is Kevin Dantzler versus Junny Ocasio. I think the last time we saw Kevin Dantzler on Fury, he went against Aljamain Sterling in a match that he won. No one was super happy about it, but
controversial, I believe.
It was a little controversial, but I think really it was in my eyes, it was very fine for Dantzler to win that. He was the one that was doing more in that matchup, so I really didn't have a problem with him winning it. It just wasn't the most exciting match. And again, that's sort of, it takes two to tango.
Sure.
On either side, that's kind
fighters make fights.
Yeah, man. That's why Andrew Tackett and Cade Rotolo, you put those dudes wherever, it's gonna be a fun matchup. Not all matchups are those two guys, but he's going against Junny Ocasio, another guy that'll play a little tactically, but is very finish oriented. We just talked about Junny Ocasio versus Eric Naples to defend his bantamweight title on Fight to Win a couple of weeks ago. Gets it done after 2 or 3 different sequences to get to rear naked choke at the end. Again, impressive. We know how good Naples is. I want to lean Ocasio here. I think Dantzler is going to be the slightly bigger guy, but not by a huge margin that something as Ocasio is not going to be used to. I love Ocasio's leg lock game. Dantzler's no stranger to the leg locks, but Dantzler I know more as a guy that wants to play off his back and play into the triangles. Versus Ocasio is a guy that we've seen him play more towards the back in recent years, but he is just such a bulletproof, strong leg locker. He goes to the Z lock, the Mikey lock. Like, he has a whole collection of different leg locks, like very Eddie Cummings-esque in the style in which he approaches a lot of those exchanges. And it's been really cool to watch him continue to develop that and take titles. I think we are immediately going to see both guys pull. We could see Ocasio looking to pass, but I feel like in this matchup, recently we've seen Dantzler pulling a lot more. I think there was one match where he didn't pull recently, and I'm blanking on exactly what match that was, but both guys like to pull. I think Ocasio is more willing to pass, but sometimes both guys will just sit and play into the guard. I give the edge here to Junny. I think I like Junny's open space entries, but Dantzler is kind of known to play spoiler. Kind of thinking about that Aljamain Sterling match, that is something that he has done repeatedly over the years. You can watch Dantzler's matches with Keith Krikorian on Arena, where it's like Krikorian was able to deal with Dantzler and able to heel hook him, I think, in 1 or 2 rounds. I think rear naked choke was one of the rounds, and a heel hook was another round, because they do the 3-round format for the endurance format. Okay. I think Ocasio has a similar. Doesn't quite have the size of Krikorian, and Krikorian is a 45 or 55er, and will go up even beyond that. Ocasio is firmly a bantamweight that I don't think cuts a whole ton of weight to make bantamweight in the first place.
Right.
I just think that the entries that Ocasio will be able to hit, Dantzler will be on the defensive here, pulling out, and most likely being able to neutralize a lot of these exchanges and get out of the leg locks. But Dantzler is a guy that we have seen leg locked before, and I think that Junny will be able to push enough action in this and force enough defense from Dantzler, and then he is also more willing to play the top in this matchup, which I think in Fury, again, generally speaking with how they judge it, we see more guys in Fury take wins with top position. You go back and watch Sean Brady versus Craig Jones on Fury. It was Brady on top pushing into Craig Jones, and it was like not a whole lot happened in the match, but Brady has top position. Brady's kind of working towards something, and Craig wasn't doing a whole lot as far as like getting anything going. They gave it to Brady, and it was like, okay, that's sort of like in MMA style scoring. If nothing much happens, they give it to the top player unless the bottom player is like really active and like obviously the one looking for stuff. Okay. So that's why I kind of lean, if we do go to a decision here, I do lean for Junny's favor just for how he tends to like to play these kind of matches. But I could see Junny getting a leg lock here on Dantzler, like a heel hook or something else. Maybe able to take the back when Dantzler pulls out of that transition, but it should be fun. Again, I think Junny will really be hunting the subs, and I think we'll probably see a couple of flashes from Dantzler as well, if Junny ever overextends, but Junny's just very, very diligent. So you have thoughts on the match?
Yeah, thoughts. I think I'll give it to Junny. I think he's just that much more of an experienced grappler than Dantzler. Not to mention, they've already met previously at the New York Open, I think in 2023.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You brought up that earlier.
And I think Junny caught him in a heel hook. So
yeah, and that was like, what, 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2020. Yeah, 2 years ago.
Yeah, so they've met. I forgot this was a rematch. We talked about this on the pre-show, and then I completely have blanked on it.
That's why I'm your Robin, bro.
That's good, man.
You're Batman.
Appreciate it. Teamwork.
But I think that Junny has been in more of these more grappling experience.
And it's a rematch.
It's a rematch.
I forgot. It's like the main talking point for a match like this is like, unless something happened weird in the first match.
And I guess once like you mentioned before, Dantzler got caught in a heel hook. And I think Junny, when I first started watching him, he was strictly a leg locker. I mean, he's
Yeah.
progressed since then. So I think
He
that's
can do a
gonna
lot
be
more, but yeah, I mean,
that's
he's
going to be
just-
his path to victory, I think. And he's going to try to go out and finish this pretty quickly. So I'm saying Junny.
Man, I love that we have more title fights on Fury. Like welterweight title fight for the main event in Pat Sabatini versus Joe Solecki. Then we have a bantamweight title. We have a Dantzler versus Junny Ocasio. Then we have a bracket that I'm actually really excited about. We'll talk about Chris Weidman and Pat Downey here in a second, but the 4-women bracket, it's a 125-pound bracket. We have Trinity Pun, we have Taylor Hishaw, we have Amanda Bruse, and Cindy Ung. I think that they are most likely going to put Trinity Pun and Taylor Hishaw on opposite sides of the bracket because they just recently had that match at Who's Number One on the undercard.
Yes, he did.
Wasn't the most exciting match. It was Trinity pulling and then Taylor looking to pass from the top.
And that was basically it.
That was kind of it. And they gave Hishaw the win on aggressive. She was working towards the pass. She was the top player looking to progress. And Pun was sort of working to get her guard going, her closed guard going a little bit, but didn't really get much going in that match. And so you give it to Hishaw. Given that match was like what?
2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah, something like that. Because I was on the Rodriguez versus Duarte card.
Yeah.
So like not that long.
Not even a month ago.
Yeah, given that was so recent, I would be surprised. Fury maybe not. I would be surprised though if other organizations would put them on the same side of the bracket. It would kind of be like it. I think personally, if you see a matchup like that and they're in a bracket, if they're super fight, cool, do it again.
Sure.
But if it's in a bracket, like just separate them because now it's like we just saw that. Maybe there's an opportunity to have a different matchup you didn't just see if you're a fan of grappling. And again, the women that they've selected here, they're obviously fans of grappling because this is a very fun bracket. So I think we're going to get either Hishaw we're going to get Hishaw versus Bruse or Ung, and we're going to get Trinity versus Amanda Bruse or Cindy Ung.
Yeah.
I think the big hitter in this bracket is Amanda Bruse. We pulled her record before. We've talked about her years on the show. She's been active and doing the ADCC Opens. She won the San Diego Open. She won the Portland Open. I think she won, what else? She almost won Trials. She loses to Alex Enriquez at West Coast Trials in 2024. She loses to Tammy Musumeci in the third-place match, but she makes it through Nikki Sullivan, Alex Wynn in the run-up to that in the under 55-kilogram bracket. She's been doing the World Championship. She's been doing pans. She beats Julia May Lee by rear naked choke last year in 2024. She loses to Mo Black on Who's Number One. She loses to Mo Black at Nogi Worlds in 2024. Loses to Jasmine Rocha at Who's Number One, which again, you can go back and watch those matches. Let's see. I'm trying to. There was another big show.
I think she's a winner of Mo Black. Yeah, Mo Black in past.
Yeah, 2022, a couple 3 years ago.
She beat Tammy Musumeci.
She's fought Fionn. That it's Amanda's very, very good. She's out of Atos. Where am I? I just lost my. There we go. I lost my bracketing.
I think she's one of those grapplers that she's seen everyone and she has her fair share of wins and a fair share of losses.
Yeah.
So she's on that level and she's very good.
Cindy Ung, we recently saw her versus Cassia Mora at 135. The Fight Pass Invitational. Again, Cassia Mora, I think, just took, Cassia Mora, fastest woman to black belt ever, essentially. Going from
3 years.
blue to black. And I think it wasn't even 3. I think it was
That's crazy.
16 months or something. It was a year because she wins blue belt, gi, purple belt, no gi, brown belt, gi. It was dude, what? You just speed ran it, the whole thing? Yeah. Very impressive. Again, so losing to Cassia Mora isn't that's a lot of people I think are going to lose to Cassia Mora as a black belt now.
A lot of people are having a lot more will.
Yeah, she also in the Open for Atlantic City, she beats Sofia Casella. I think that Bruse is probably the biggest obstacle for all these women to get by. I am really curious for Taylor Hishaw in this bracket, though, because she's 18. She's young. She's an MMA fighter. She fought a lot in the UAE, the feeder for Abu Dhabi. It's a youth program for MMA.
Okay.
She's fought a lot there. She's looked very good. We've seen her grappling. We've seen her on Main Character. We've seen her on, I think, who's number one. She's super young, and she's at B-Team.
This is the B-Team.
I think that Taylor Hishaw is going to be very, very good and going to have a breakout performance in the next 2 years.
And this might be her.
That
might be our time.
That is also what I'm kind of wondering. It's like, it wouldn't surprise me to have her suddenly just start racking up very, very good wins. Again, she already has a win over Trinity Pun a couple of weeks ago. Pun is out of New Wave now, so there's that rivalry between the two teams. Pun wasn't at a New Wave until, I think, last year. I think that whoever wins the first round, whoever goes up against, I'm confused here in the bracketing. I would love to see Hishaw and Bruse go at it. For me, that's the most interesting matchup. Love to see them on. It doesn't really matter. It's only a 4-person bracket, so either side of it is a $5,000 cash bracket. So that's actually a very large prize for a women's bracket, which is great. We need more of those like that. The match I want to see is Bruse versus Hishaw. I think that Bruse will be able to get through Taylor Hishaw, but given how young Taylor is, I think that would be a phenomenal match for her to get early career. I think she's still a purple belt right now, might be a brown belt technically.
I think she was recently promoted. I can't remember if she promoted to purple.
Yeah, we pulled up her record we pulled her up on Smooth Comp, and I think she was purple on Smooth Comp still.
Yeah.
But that's just like what you've competed on as Smooth Comp. But I think getting a matchup like that versus Bruse early career is a big stepping stone. Because again, we saw like Couch versus Gordon a couple of years ago, and then you saw like the wild level of improvement that Couch was able to make after that matchup. After the Gordon matchup, he got more hype, and then he really made big changes. Ended up winning trials.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, okay, like now like you have elevated your game. I think early career, like you're 18, taking those like really, really high level matches early is interesting. I think that Bruse will take this bracket, but all of these women are absolutely capable of it, especially again, if Pun can get her guard game going. If you're going to play into Pun's game, she can get there going too. Any kind of thoughts that you have for this bracket?
Yeah, I think I'm going to call out Hishaw for the whole thing.
Hishaw?
Yeah.
You make a Miranda pick, a dark horse pick?
Yeah, I think so. She has a youth. She has a pedigree. I mean, but they all four of them train at great gyms.
You have New Wave, B-Team, Atos, and Balance.
Yeah, so anyone can take this, but just my gut is saying Taylor.
I would love to see. We're Team Balance.
Yeah.
Here out of Baltimore. Cindy Ung is Team Balance out of Philly.
That would be cool.
It would be really cool to see Cindy be able to take it though.
Yeah.
Like to see our team be able to take one is cool. Again, I love being part of Balance, but we don't typically field a ton of people at like the world level anymore.
Sure.
I think Cindy's one of the top women. She is the top woman, I think, in the association competing regularly in adult. So it'd be really cool for us to see her take it. But yeah, I think
that'd be nice.
Bruse and Hishaw to me are the two front runners here. But really depends on bracketing and depends on what day everyone has.
Yes,
so
it does.
Moving on, we title fight brackets, and we have a couple other super fights that are really interesting on this card. Chris Weidman versus Pat Downey.
Woo.
Yeah, so you weren't quite as familiar with a lot of the old school Chris Weidman grappling matches.
Yeah.
So for instance, for context, Chris Weidman won ADCC trials in 2008. He then goes into face
A couple years back
at this point. Early in his pro career, I think he had like 2 pro fights at that point in Rock, and then went on to win trials. Goes to ADCC 2009, has a really fun match with Andre Galvao that if you haven't got a chance to see it, go see it. They call him Weidman the entire time because no one knew. It's just this random guy that no one knew how to pronounce his name, so it's Chris Weidman, so Weidman. At one point, he throws a Peruvian on Andre Galvao, and you're like, oh, this dude's really good. Yeah, he was a D1 wrestler. He's an All-American. Like, Weidman was a monster back into the day, 2008, 2009 for grappling. And then we saw him go win the UFC championship, beat Anderson Silva twice, do a bunch of other stuff. He's 40 now. It's been a few years. We've seen the last time we saw him grapple that I remember was on Polaris versus Owen Livesey. Didn't look phenomenal in that matchup. It was a classic MMA fighter pushing back and forth. Owen kind of shooting a little bit, but more stand-up and not a huge amount of activity. And honestly, not a ton to go on of really like information for what Weidman's game looks like as a sport grappler now. So Weidman's the X factor. He has the experience, but he's not going to look like the Weidman that we saw go against Andre Galvao in when he was in his 20s.
Yeah.
He's 40 now.
Yes. 17 years ago, 16 years ago.
It was a while.
It's a while ago.
Pat
Downey,
the Lizard King. Banned from IBJJF.
Pat's a dog.
Yeah.
Man. He's just gritty, grinding.
He had his blue belt for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Won IBJJF Blue Belt Worlds. Got in a fight. Got DQ'd and banned for 5 years. Pat's a character. We've talked about a bunch of his matches. Pat's a world level wrestler. I think how old is Pat? I think he's like late 20s.
I want to say late 20s.
He's 32. Oh no shit. Okay.
32.
Younger than me. But not actually way older than I thought he was. Primarily been a wrestler, a world team wrestler for a while. We've seen him make forays into jiu-jitsu as early as 2019, I think. 2018, 2019, I think. Really saw him come to prominence 2021. He had that match with Gordon.
Match with Nicky Rod. I think he wrestled Nicky Rod.
Yeah.
Back in 2019.
That was on the Who's Number One, the wrestling side of the Who's Number One. That was a showcase match. Beats Nicky Rod in wrestling, beats Gordon Ryan in wrestling, and the BJJ Fanatics one after Gordon took him to a 40-minute match where he tried to exhaust him. Yeah. And then Pat tapped to what did he tap to? He realized that Gordon was just trying to make him tired, tapped to a crackdown essentially. What's the a half Nelson?
Okay.
Taps to a half Nelson. Gordon's like, it's all sub, and Pat's like, I tapped to it, and then they put the wrestling things on, and Pat texts Gordon in 20 seconds, and it was yes, very very good wrestler. I think that he can get Weidman down. I don't think that Weidman has the foot speed that he used to have in order to stop Downey. Again, that Downey's not really an explosive double leg wrestler. But I think that he's going to be able to snap and get into Weidman's legs. And just because of all the mileage that Weidman has, Weidman's not quite going to be able to stop the forward movement from Pat. How long they spent on the ground, I do not know. I can't really neither would surprise me. Weidman, again, former world champion at middleweight in the UFC. Probably a pretty difficult guy to hold down, but if anyone else that can hold him down, I would expect it to be Pat, but I sort of would be surprised to see Weidman play guard.
Yeah.
I would be surprised to see Pat play guard. I think this is going to be a what's the term I can use on the podcast? A dick waving contest. A wrestling dick waving contest is what my guess would be. Again, Weidman has those, the collegiate credentials. Downey has the collegiate credentials for wrestling. Both went a little bit different routes. Pat has had 2 fights, one prior and then one in I think 2 actually in Bellator, but doesn't really seem like he's going to actively pursue MMA. He'll kind of do it back and forth. He's now not on the Bellator roster anymore. I think Weidman might be out of the UFC now after the loss to Eric Anders, but I don't know.
I think this fight goes one way.
I think it goes Pat Downey's way by decision.
Downey's way.
You think it goes sub?
I think he might sub him.
Walk me through, Corey. Walk me through the process and what sub.
Well, see now.
I don't necessarily think you're wrong. I just want this is one of those show your work moments. I'm lead me through the thought process at least.
Well, I can get you to the sub. I think
Pat's
I think Pat's it's gonna be, like you said, a dick weaving competition. Wrestler versus wrestler. I would give that to Pat. 8 years younger. I think he's been more grappling focused over his more recent career than Weidman has.
Yeah, he's also he got to a higher level than Weidman did in wrestling.
I'm not quite sure of the size. Before I remember, I think Weidman might be a little bigger than Pat, but I'm not quite sure.
He might be actually. You're right. I didn't actually think about the size as much, but
I just think Pat's going to get him down.
8 years is a long time, man.
8 years is a long time. I think he has I won't say less mileage. He may have even more mileage than Weidman, but he's been grappling for a long time.
He does, but Weidman's the mileage guy right now.
Well, plus I guess Pat hasn't taken very many hits to the head.
Hasn't broken his leg in half either.
So Weidman, I guess, you're right. But I see Pat getting him down. I'm not quite sure what Pat's submissions game is like, but
a lot of Darce chokes. He's really like a Darce.
Like a headlock kind of attack.
Yeah,
kind of guy.
we talked about his subs in when he did the Worlds for IBJJF at Blue Belt.
Okay.
A big focus on the Darce game is really what he seems to like.
And that makes sense, being coming from a wrestling background with the front headlock and entry to maybe the Anaconda, the Darce.
That's what he seems. That's what he seems to favor.
Yeah.
Man, now I'm thinking about this. I'm like,
I think Pat's going to sub him, man. Call me crazy.
You think
I don't
he
know.
snaps him down to like a Darce or something?
I think that's his path to victory. I mean, if that's his move, I mean, like you said, two wrestlers going at it. I think it's going to be a wrestle fest. Who gets?
It could also go
faster.
to Golden Score. I think if it goes to Golden Score, Pat takes it on like a final takedown.
And I think Pat may have a better gas tank than Weidman. Sorry.
The throwback name. I think you have good points. I agree.
But it should be exciting. It should be exciting. I'm not quite sure how long
it could be
how
exciting.
long the rounds are. How long are the rounds?
That's a very good question, Corey. It's something I should know leading into this. Rounds are definitely rounds, Corey. As far as I do not know for Fury. I know Fury. I get their rules wrong almost every time we cover them because I don't remember them.
It's okay.
So yeah, I think Weidman has a tough matchup in Downey, winnable for sure.
Oh, he could definitely take this. Like anyone can win this. You just never know.
But Downey again, it leans heavy Downey just because he has been doing so much more grappling than Chris and recently. That's the big thing that I lean into is that fact.
And he's a dog, man. He's just gritty, grimy. He's not going to let up off that gas tank. Off that pedal.
That's my thought. So, other matches on the card I want to talk about. Anything else on this one, by the way?
No.
We have Dashi Goto versus Devontae Johnson. Ooh. This could be a slow match. Corey and I talked about it on the pre-show a bit. If Devontae gets his game going, I think he beats Dashi. If Dashi can just stay diligent and stay in front of Devontae and sort of not even slow Devontae down, because Devontae notoriously is plays a slow game. Like, for me, when we cover him, almost like a frustratingly slow game, because we know how good he is, but he's sort of so reluctant to pull the trigger and put a stamp on a match that he kind of will let matches get away from him and not really ever lose them.
That's a good way to put it.
Just never
the match gets away from him sometimes.
Yeah,
just kind of like sand just kind of slips out of his fingers.
Yeah, he's never losing it really. There's never a moment where it's he's on the defensive here, he's winning the entirety of the match, but just a lot of times doesn't have enough activity unless he's just smashing you to do it. If we get that kind of match versus Dashi, I think that Dashi will be willing to do more than Devontae. For me, this is not an IQ test, but this is like a game planning test for Devontae. It's you do more here. I think he can overwhelm Dashi Goto. Dashi's tough. He's training at B-Team nowadays. Devontae has his own gym, was formerly at Unity with Murillo. If Dashi can just push Devontae into being unwilling to counter or not countering enough or just playing too slow, I think Dashi has a good chance at victory here. A late takedown, Dashi has fun judo. He has fun trips. If he can take Devontae down late, which is hard to do, but I think Dashi has a good chance at victory here. If Devontae can impose his game on Dashi Goto, it looks one way and it looks clean for Devontae. That's really my question of those are the sort of the two avenues I think this match goes is Dashi gets rolling, Dashi gets moving, Devontae stays on the defensive, and then Dashi takes it, Devontae gets moving, Devontae gets on the offensive, he takes it. I don't really think we'll see a sub here either way. Devontae is very defensively sound when it comes to getting submitted. It's very rare to have him get subbed. Dashi Goto, I think we've seen him submitted in the legs, but I don't remember the last time we've seen him get rear naked choked. That's more of I don't remember when it is. I can't recall offhand. So this will be the battle of the guy that does more.
I think so.
Really, I think there's not a whole lot, from a technical perspective. Both guys are very capable in all areas, but I've just been a little frustrated with the pacing that Devontae keeps versus higher level guys recently.
Yeah, I think I've seen enough of Devontae Johnson's matches to know that if the Devontae Johnson, they get that W shows up or the beast that shows up, he's gonna. It's gonna be
like his matches at Polaris, like his Polaris squads matches. Really, he kind of puts stamps on guys. You're like, he doesn't really put a lot of people away there, but he gets rolling where it's like, oh yeah, this is your match. You're taking this. Like those kind of matches. I keep thinking of Dashi Goto's his trials run.
Yeah.
And again, we covered enough guys on the show that I will have like pinpoints of like, this is when I talk about this guy. These are the matches that I remember, and these are the matches I talk about. His trials one is phenomenal. Like if we get that guy, I think he gives Devontae problems.
Who knows? But I think. Well, just looking at his hold that for a second, I think they both have some common matches. They both have losses to Roosevelt Sousa.
Not super surprising.
Not super surprising. But
finish losses or just
they both got finished by rear
naked choke. Yeah.
Yep.
Dude, Roosevelt went on a run there just like a couple years ago, like last year, right?
2023, 2024. Yeah.
Yeah, so a couple years ago, like, man, Roosevelt Sousa, like, really reinvented himself and just started putting dudes away, both in Nogi, I think.
Yes, and interestingly enough, they both gone against Sean Yadimarco, who we spoke about earlier from finishers. Devontae finishes him with rear naked choke. This is in Virginia Nogi Open.
Yep.
And
IBJJF,
yes. Yeah. And then
Dashi
lost to Sean via split decision.
Okay.
So commonality doesn't mean much, but there is maybe some.
It's always interesting. Of like again, it's
common
even,
opponents.
And then you have the Devontae taking that one sub over Yadimarco, who we just talked about, and then Dashi not being able to get that win. It's like it kind of speaks to the way I think the match could go. Like Dashi, this would be a great win for Dashi. I think Devontae is the favorite here to win this, but can absolutely just get in his own way almost by not doing enough in the match and kind of letting it fall away from him.
Yeah. I think Devontae is maybe more of the known commodity here, but I think Dashi definitely has the ability to make it happen.
I like Dashi's game. I think it's fun. So next match, anything else, any kind of other pieces on this match? We also have Amanda Maza versus Taylor Clark. That should be a really fun one. We have Zach Maslany versus Pete Shoemaker on this, and Andrew Cockle versus Cody Jones on this as well. So, and Lucas Bird versus Lucas Seibert. So again, it's a really fun card. There's also a whole host of guys. Front of the show, Nick Willie is on the card as well versus Dietrich Trumber. Nick's been on the main card of Fury for a while, so it's odd for me to see him on the undercard here. It kind of just speaks to the weight of the card. So it should be a really fun card. Fury's always fun. It usually runs pretty well and pretty quickly. So it's on Fight Pass. Production's good. Commentary's great. Big J a lot of times is on commentary, which is like a breath of fresh air.
It is. He's good.
Man, Jay he's like the best. Yeah. It's funny. I was talking to Seth at Fight to Win. And Big J's largely retired from commentary in the area. He's taking a larger role with ADCC, with reffing and judging and doing a lot of that. And as a result, Josh and I do commentary now. Because typically, when Fight to Win used to come into the Baltimore area or the New Jersey area, it'd be Big J. And it was like, well, I'm not gonna like get the commentary gig over Big J. Sure. So now that Big J's retired, it's like it's made some space for like guys like us to get a chance to do commentary. But Big J still does a lot of times. Does Fury, and it's awesome to just hear him. He's super knowledgeable, super understanding of exactly.
Always has backstories.
And he's just the voice of the East, and it's awesome to get him on a card because it gives you such a good like layout for who you're watching, why it's important. He's so tuned in to the East Coast grappling game. Deservedly the voice of the East, so it's awesome to be able to get you. You just get backstories on like a lot of the talking points that I have on grapplers are things that I've got from hearing and listening to Big J over the years. So it'll be a lot of fun. Any kind of closing thoughts you got on Fury, Corey?
Nope. Should be very exciting.
Should be very exciting. I think that's all we got for this week's show. Maybe a little shorter of a show. Let's see. We have Worlds in 2 weeks. We are going to preview Worlds next week. We will hopefully have brackets for IBJJF Worlds. It's so funny talking about that in May because Worlds has historically been, aside from the 1 year, historically been in like June. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's May. Oh right, Worlds is like, it's like a full like week or 2 weeks earlier than usual, and it's just throwing me off completely. So hopefully we should have brackets come out. Talk to Elijah Dorsey. He'll be there. A lot of other guys from TLI are going to be there. we have some really interesting storylines at Worlds this year, so I'm excited to pull someone in. We'll pull brackets out, and we will talk about who the front runners are for the 2025 IBJJF World Champions in the gi, which will mark the end of gi season. Then we'll move into no gi season, unless you are a team that only does no gi, and then it's just always no gi season.
There you go.
But yeah, it should be good. Troy, you got anything fun happening this week? Anything fun going on?
No, man. Just trying to live my life. Oh, yeah. I bought my oldest a car.
That's terrifying.
It's terrifying, but it's kind of refreshing. I mean, that insurance and that car note isn't, but, more freedom.
Yep.
Get hopefully train more.
That's awesome. Look, man, we got to open that in 25 minutes.
Perfect.
You could run down, tell your wife the show ran long.
There you go.
Be like, oh, the show, oh yeah, Maine, Maine, we got in the new studio space. Maine got to, he needed my help with some stuff.
Got
And
to
then
talking.
so, why are you so sweaty? And we were working in the basement. We were putting up new drywall into the studio, and it was a big problem. Like you smell like, why's your gi all dirty? He wanted to put the gi on for some reason for some photos. Just keep on photo ops. So yeah, that'll be. I got nothing fun going on. Actually, no, we have a wedding I gotta go to. I have a wedding I get to go to. My buddy's getting married, so. Taking off some days at work and then going up north for that wedding. So that will be a lot of fun. We're going to bring the dog. That will maybe be fun, maybe not be fun. Get to see my father-in-law. His birthday's today, so that'll be good to see him.
Okay.
So it'll be a whole fun thing. We got next week's recording is going to be on 4th of July, not 4th of July, Memorial Day. So it'll be a fun couple of days. So I got nothing else, man. You got anything else?
Nothing else, man. About to go train. That's about it.
Yep. As always on the show, I'm your host, Maine, my co-host,
Corey.
And we are the Grappling Reruns, and that where it is. Stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.